Most buying decisions are not as rational as people think, especially when it comes to home decor. Objects placed inside a home often carry emotional meaning, even when the buyer believes they are choosing based on design, style, or simple preference. There is usually something deeper happening underneath that decision. When someone chooses a political collectible, they are rarely just buying an object. They are selecting something that represents a belief system, a worldview, or an identity they already feel connected to. The product becomes less about decoration and more about expression of internal values. Home environments are powerful psychological spaces. Every object inside them contributes to how a person feels daily. This is why people often choose items that reinforce what they already believe, even if they are not fully aware of that motivation at the moment of purchase. Political collectibles exist in a unique category of consumer behavior. They are not purely functional, and they are not purely aesthetic. Instead, they sit at the intersection of identity, symbolism, and emotional reinforcement. That combination makes them particularly meaningful for certain buyers. For many people, political identity is not something separate from daily life. It is integrated into how they interpret events, relationships, and even personal spaces. This is why objects connected to political themes often feel more significant than ordinary decorative items. The decision to display a political collectible at home is often tied to a desire for alignment. People want their environment to reflect their internal beliefs. When there is alignment between space and identity, it creates a sense of consistency and psychological comfort. Symbols play a major role in this process. A symbol can communicate complex ideas without words. In political collectibles, symbols are used to represent strength, ideology, tradition, or national identity. These meanings are often culturally reinforced over time. The more familiar a symbol is, the stronger its emotional impact becomes. People do not need to analyze it deeply to understand it. Instead, they respond to it instantly based on learned associations and personal experiences connected to that symbol. This is one reason political collectibles often feature strong visual elements. The goal is not just decoration, but immediate recognition. Recognition triggers emotional response, and emotional response increases perceived value of the object. However, not all buyers experience these objects in the same way. Some are motivated by personal belief, while others are motivated by identity expression within their social environment. In both cases, the object serves as a communication tool. People often underestimate how much their environment influences their mindset. Seeing certain symbols daily can reinforce specific thoughts or emotional states. Over time, this reinforcement can strengthen the connection between identity and physical surroundings. Political collectibles can also serve as conversation pieces. When visitors enter a home, these objects may communicate something about the homeowner's values without any verbal explanation. This silent communication is part of their appeal. In many cases, buyers are not just thinking about themselves. They are also considering how others will interpret the object. This adds another layer to the decision-making process, blending personal meaning with social perception. The emotional component of these purchases is often stronger than the practical one. Even if the object has no functional use, it can still feel important because of what it represents. Meaning becomes more valuable than utility. Over time, some individuals begin to collect multiple items that share similar symbolic meaning. These collections form a visual representation of identity that evolves gradually. Each item adds another layer to the overall message being expressed. Collecting behavior in this context is not random. It is guided by consistency in values and emotional resonance. People tend to select items that fit within an existing narrative they already hold about themselves or their beliefs. There is also a psychological comfort in reinforcing known ideas. When people surround themselves with familiar symbols, they reduce cognitive tension and create a stable environment that reflects their internal worldview. This does not mean all political collectibles are used the same way. Some are displayed prominently, while others are kept in private spaces. The level of visibility often depends on how openly someone wants to express their beliefs. The design of the object also matters. Strong visual structure, recognizable symbolism, and cultural relevance all contribute to how the item is perceived. Even subtle differences in design can change emotional impact. Manufacturers and creators of these items often understand this psychological layer. They design products not just for appearance, but for meaning. The goal is to create something that resonates beyond surface-level aesthetics. When people evaluate these items, they often focus on whether it feels right. This feeling is subjective, but it is based on internal alignment between the object and the buyer's identity framework. This explains why two people can see the same object and react differently. One may feel connection, while another feels neutrality. The difference lies in personal belief systems and emotional associations. Political collectibles also reflect broader cultural dynamics. They are influenced by current events, public discourse, and collective sentiment. As these factors shift, the meaning attached to certain symbols can also evolve. Despite these changes, the core motivation remains consistent. People want to express who they are in visible ways. Objects become a medium for that expression, especially when language alone is not sufficient. In some cases, these items are purchased as gifts. This adds another dimension, where the giver is not only expressing their own values, but also attempting to align with the recipient's identity. Gift-giving in this category is often highly intentional. It is less about surprise and more about recognition of shared beliefs. The object becomes a symbol of mutual understanding. There is also a growing interest in collectible items that hold long-term meaning. Unlike disposable products, these items are intended to remain relevant over time because their value is symbolic rather than functional. This symbolic value is what drives sustained interest. Even as trends change, meaningful objects tend to remain in place because they are tied to identity rather than temporary preference. People often revisit their collections over time and reflect on why they chose each item. This reflection reinforces the connection between memory, belief, and physical space. In this way, political collectibles become part of personal history. They represent not just current beliefs, but the evolution of those beliefs over time. Understanding this behavior helps explain why these items continue to exist across different markets. They fulfill a psychological need for expression, belonging, and identity reinforcement. Even critics of political collectibles often acknowledge their emotional significance. While they may question their purpose, they recognize that the motivation behind them is deeply human. The real value of these items is not in their physical form, but in the meaning assigned to them by the owner. That meaning cannot be standardized or universally defined. This makes each purchase highly personal. What feels meaningful to one person may feel irrelevant to another. The difference is entirely based on internal perspective. As society becomes more expressive, objects like these are likely to remain relevant. People continue seeking ways to externalize internal identity in visible and tangible forms. This trend is not limited to politics. It extends to culture, lifestyle, and personal values. However, political collectibles remain one of the most direct expressions of ideological identity. The more emotionally charged the symbol, the stronger the response it tends to generate. This is why certain designs become instantly recognizable within specific communities. Ultimately, the decision to buy a political collectible is rarely about the object alone. It is about what the object represents and how it fits into a larger personal narrative. Understanding this helps explain consumer behavior that might otherwise seem purely emotional or irrational. In reality, it follows consistent psychological patterns tied to identity. If you want to explore an example of how these symbolic products are presented in real contexts, you can check the official page linked in the description. Provides a closer look at how meaning and symbolism are packaged into a physical product.